Daf Yomi, Tractate Zevachim, page 18. Zevachim Yud Ches and Aleph. This is actually the Daf for Yom Kippur. I'm doing it a little early today. I might have only time to only do just page 1. Just side 1, I mean. So, Amud Aleph. So let's see. Zevachim Yud Ches and Aleph, top of the page, with the words Talmud Lomar Chuka Ligzera Shava. The verse states statute with regard to those who drank wine, and it likewise states statute with regard to the priestly vestments. Exodus 28:43. With regard to the washing of the hands and feet. Exodus 30:21. One therefore derives by verbal analogy that the halacha in all three cases is the same. If so, there is already a source for the halacha that one who lacks the requisite priestly vestments disqualifies the service. The Gemara responds, if one derived the halacha only from there, I would say, this matter, meaning the rights of one who lacks the requisite vestments, are disqualified, applies only to a right for which a non-priest is liable to receive the punishment of death at the hand of heaven, since that is the topic of the passage discussing those who drank wine. But with regard to a right for which a non-priest is not liable to receive the death at the hand of heaven, I would say that they are not subject to this halacha. Therefore, the verse in Exodus 29 verse 9 teaches us that the halacha applies to all rights. The Gemara asks, we found a source for the halacha that one lacking the requisite vestments disqualifies all rights, even those for which a non-priest is not liable to receive the punishment of death at the hand of heaven. From where do we derive that the halacha is the same for those who drank wine, as the passage in Leviticus 10:9-10 addresses only rights for which a non-priest receives the death penalty? The Gemara responds, it is derived by a verbal analogy between the word statute, used here, and the word statute from the verses discussing one lacking the requisite vestments. The Gemara asks, but doesn't the Tana of the aforementioned Braita derive that the rights of those who drank wine are disqualified from the verse that you may put difference between the holy and the common, Leviticus 10:10, and not by verbal analogy to a priest lacking the requisite vestments? The Gemara responds that you may put difference between the holy and the common is the source of this halacha only before the verbal analogy stands. Once the verbal analogy is derived, it is the source of the halacha with regard to those who drank wine as well. The Gemara challenges, but doesn't the Tana of the Braita derive the halacha with regard to one lacking the requisite vestments itself from the case of those who drank wine? The Gemara responds, actually, the disqualification of rights performed by one who drank wine is derived from the case of one lacking vestments, and this is what the Tana is saying. From where is it derived that there is no distinction between one lacking the requisite vestments and those who drank wine, and one whose hands and feet are not washed, and that all three disqualify all rights? The verses state the word statute in order to derive a verbal analogy. אלא להבדיל למה לי לחדריו, דרב לא מוקים המורה לעלה מיום הטבע לחברי, משום שיכרוס. The Gemara asks, but if the halacha that one who drank wine disqualifies the service is disqualified from the verbal analogy, why do I need the verse that you may put difference between the holy and the common? The Gemara responds, the verse is necessary in accordance with the custom of Rav, as Rav would not place an interpreter before him, meaning he would not lecture in public from the time that he drank wine on one festival day until the other, the second festival day due to drunkenness. Rav was concerned that he would not issue a proper ruling because it was customary to drink wine on the festivals. And the verse states, and that you may put difference between the holy and the common, and between the pure and the impure and the pure, and that you may teach the children of Israel all the statutes which the Lord has spoken. Leviticus 10:10 through 11, indicating that one who drank wine may not issue a halachic ruling. Akati mihacha nafka, mihasum nafka, benasenu beneharon hakohen, bechihuno, limed al kohen gadol, שלבש בגדי כהן הדיוט ועבד עבודתו פסולה. The Gemara asks, still, is the disqualification of rites performed by one lacking the requisite vestments derived from here? Meaning from the verse, and you shall gird them with belts, Aaron and his sons, Exodus 29 verse 9. It is derived from there, and the sons of Aaron the priest shall put the fire upon the altar, Leviticus 1:7. The superfluous term, the priest, serves to indicate that he may serve only in his priestly state. The verse therefore teaches that with regard to a high priest who wore the vestments of an ordinary priest and performed sacrificial rites, his service is disqualified. The Gemara responds, if one derived the halacha only from there, I would say, this matter applies only to service that is indispensable for effecting atonement. But service that is not indispensable for effecting atonement, for example, putting fire upon the altar, is not subject to the halacha. Therefore, the verse in Leviticus 1:7 indicates that the halacha applies even to rites that are not indispensable. ויערכם בני אהרון הכהנים את הניתחים וגומר הכהנים וכיהונן מכאן לכהן הדיוט שלבש בגדי כהן גדול ועבד עבודתו פסולה. The Gemara asks, but still, is the halacha derived from here, meaning from all the previous sources, is derived from there. The sons of Aaron, the priests, shall lay pieces and the head and the fat in order upon the wood that is on the fire, which is upon the altar, Leviticus 1:8. The superfluous term, the priests, serves to indicate that the priests may serve only in their priestly state. From here one derives that with regard to an ordinary priest who wore the vestments of the high priest and performed sacrificial rites, his service is disqualified. The Gemara responds, if one derived the halacha only from there, I would say this matter applies only to a lack of vestments. For example, a high priest who wore fewer than his requisite 8 vestments, but in excess of vestments, for example, an ordinary priest who wore more than his requisite 4, is not subject to the halacha. This verse therefore teaches us that the halacha applies even to an excess of vestments. Tanu Rabbanan hayu mirushalin misulakin mishuchakin ועבד עבודתו כשרה, לבש שני מכנסיים, שני אבנטים, חסר אחז, יתר אחז, או שהייתה לו רתיעה עד מכת בשרו, תחת בגדו, או שהיו, going over to 18b now, מטושטשין, או מקוראין, ועבד עבודתו בסעודה. Okay, I think we'll stop at 18b and complete that at a different time because we're running short for time. But in English, it is, the sages taught, if the priest's vestments were dragging on the ground or raised up far from the ground or frayed, and the priest performed sacrificial rites while wearing them, his service is valid. If he wore 2 pairs of trousers or 2 belts, or if he was lacking one of his requisite vestments, or if he wore an extra vestment, or in a case where a priest had a bandage on a wound on his body under his vestment, such that the bandage acted as an interposition between the vestments and his skin, or if he wore vestments that were, we're turning to 18b now, that were soiled or ripped, and he performed the sacrificial rites, his service is disqualified. Okay, so we've completed 18a. I think we'll stop here for now.